Welcome, everybody, and welcome back to the relationship arena. So, here in the arena, this is the space where we talk about all things relationship. And you know that I'm interested in all types of relationships between families, between couples, between parents, between partnerships. But one thing that I'm really interested in, and that is becoming, I think, more and more talked about, is the diversity of relationships that people are having. People are a lot more open now about their wants and their needs and what motivates them to be in relationships. And thankfully, we feel able to be more open about choosing the person that we want to spend our life with and build our life, but also what happens within that relationship. So we have our traditional relationships, which are, people think of very much as a heterosexual relationship, perhaps some children in the mix. And then we've moved on to being very accepting of blended families where couples have moved on and children have come together, so we've got all of that going on. And of course, we've had same-sex marriages brought into that, from civil partnerships through to marriages. And now I feel like we are kind of in a bit of a season of this becoming more talked about, which is where we talk about what's often known as the new monogamy. It's a different way of being, and open relationships where people do not want to simply be intimate with one person in their life, but it's all above board. And it's really important, I think, to stress that we are talking here about consensual relationships where there's good communication, there's agreement. This is not about adultery. This is not about cheating. This is not about, going behind someone's back. So I'm really excited today in the relationship arena to welcome some guests. I love guests, and they do mean that I don't have to talk as much, but I do love to talk, those of you that listen to my interviews. But I love it when I can talk to other people, when I can be nosy and have a little peek into someone else's world. And this is a world that's very different to my world, but one that I hear a lot about. So I'm delighted to welcome Emma and Rosie. They're on their lovely couch, but I welcome them into the virtual arena, that is the relationship arena, because they have very kindly agreed to share their relationship, which I think for many people will be quite different to perhaps the relationship that you're in. But I want to really get to know what's working for them, how they navigate it. And I've got so many questions. We've obviously had a bit of a pre-chat before. And there's just so many like rabbit holes that I could go down about this, because I'm so nosy about this and it interests me, because what we have is two people who are really choosing to live their life and their relationship in a way that suits them. And I think that's wonderful. So Emma and Rosie, welcome into the arena.
Thank you very much. Hiya. Thank you for having us.
Very welcome, very welcome. So either of you can kind of kick off, you can start, but I'm interested, could somebody kind of describe the setup that you've got at this current moment in your relationship? Who's in it? What's going on with it?
Yeah, so we live together. We've lived together for a year and a bit now. Yeah. And we have what most people would know as an open relationship. So we're very passionate about ethical non-monogamy. Just as much as people would have more than one friend or love more than one child, we kind of extend that to partners and intimate relationships as well. So yeah, we're very open in terms of us dating other people, whether that's very casual or whether it move on to more. But kind of the main predominant is that we live together and we are each other's main partners.
Okay, so yes, so that saying you said, ethical non-monogamy, I think that's really important, isn't it? It's the choice to be non-monogamous,
Yeah.
which I think is easier to think about than the new monogamy kind of word. I think that skirts around the issue a little bit, because you aren't monogamous with each other, but it is ethical because it is all above board. But actually, you two are the two main components of the relationship. Now, we're going to do another episode about this, which is exciting, but that doesn't always have to be the case, people. There are things as pods and there's thruples and, you know, there's other things. But at the moment, Emma and Rosie are living as a couple, but they have an open relationship. So describe in a bit more detail what open means to you two.
So just on the kind of the point of like us being like the like a couple, I would say that is very much just the case at the moment because we're both like choosing that, and that we're both in control of our own relationships, and so from the sense of like Rosie doesn't have say over what I'm doing. It's just that we're both happen to be choosing each other as a priority at the moment.
Right, right.
Which, it's definitely, you know, what I want long term at the moment. You know, you never know how things are going to change, but like, so we're both. I just wanted to put that out there that it's not necessary that it's not necessary that we'll prioritize each other, but we're choosing to.
Yeah.
And I think that a choice is super important, isn't it? When you're in these kind of dynamics that and it's right, you should be clear on how are we navigating this. So you're choosing at the moment to do that, but this is what everyone I think is probably asking about. You see other people, you know, that is a choice you can also make. How do you navigate that? How does that work? Some people are asking.
We're very laid back about it because I think the reality of things is that when you meet people, it's all very spontaneous. It's not necessarily always planned. You go on like planned dates that, by the way, I'm going out with so and so on this day. If we were to go out for the day and we just meet someone that we like, we have that option to let it organically go wherever it goes, and that's really important for us. That it's not regimented. It's not got lots of rules about what we can and can't do at what time. It's what we each other feel comfortable with, and just letting things naturally flow to wherever they're going to be, sort of thing.
So I just want to pick up on that. Go on. No, please go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what it like actually looks like for us at the moment is we both casually go on dates as well as, you know, our relationship. So that's what it looks like for us at the moment. We don't have any other like committed partners or serious partners. We just enjoy other people's company in different ways.
Okay, so that's quite interesting. And it's interesting that for you, there's another importance there about this letting it evolve organically, because I know with other people in these style of relationships, there has been more structure. There has to be this kind of pre-discussion. Where are you going? Who are you meeting? If you meet them, do I vet them? Do I like them? Do I, you know, is that something that I want to be involved in? So you seem to have a very easygoing manner about how this all works.
Yeah, I think it's more just it's thinking realistically. It's kind of like I think sometimes setting up rules just sets up for failure because in reality it doesn't pan out that way. You know, I've heard a lot of different things of like people are happy for their partners to be intimate with other people, but they want to know beforehand. But if you're going away for the weekend and you meet someone, it's kind of it doesn't naturally go, oh, by the way, I've just got to call my girlfriend and just, you know, because things are kind of getting further along here. It's just, you know, let it go where it naturally goes. I think the only thing that we stress is that we make sure each other feels safe, basically, with whoever we're meeting.
Right. And also, I'm guessing, so you don't kind of get permission before the fact, but after the fact, is there an agreement that you would always disclose if something had happened?
So for us,
we enjoy telling each other. So we kind of do enjoy telling each other who we've met, what we've got up to and stuff like that. But it's absolutely not a necessity. If Em, for whatever reason, didn't want to talk about a date or someone that she was seeing, I wouldn't see it a problem. But we just naturally enjoy telling each other about it.
Yeah, we do communicate a lot, but not through rules.
No.
Like we tell each other beforehand about like logistics and stuff, you know, so that we, you know, are aware of, you know, where each other is and things like that. But not through any sort of like checklist of stuff we have to do beforehand. It's just we just communicate about that like we would, you know, when we're going to the gym or going shopping.
I was going to say that's very similar to how you kind of would expect in any relationship, from a safety, security, you know, where are you, you know, what time, that kind of thing. But it is very much about that rather than who you're with for you two. So I know a question that comes up a lot in the group that I run when we talk about, another word for this is, you know, well, I'm not sure it applies so much to you guys, but polyamory, where there are more people that, but you're more committed in that. This is more of an open relationship. Is go on.
So I definitely, like, right now, for what I want, I don't want another committed relationship, but it's totally on the table. And same for Em. If we were to meet someone, so I have someone that I see more regularly, so he's not as casual as the others. And if something did develop into that, then great. But I wouldn't want to change how I feel about relationships and intimacy. I wouldn't sign up to any sort of new rules or boundaries with them. It's just that it works for all of us. So yeah, it's definitely not off the table if, you know, Em wanted to have a boyfriend, girlfriend, or vice versa. It's just in our lives right now, we're not looking for another committed relationship.
Yeah. So that does lead on nicely to the question I was going to ask, which is, people always say, well, how do you deal with feelings of jealousy? What do you ever feel like, why would you want to see somebody else? So talk to me a bit about what that means for you both.
I can only speak for myself, that I wholeheartedly don't get jealousy at all over being with other people, her enjoying her time with other people at all. It generally brings me happiness for being happy. And I think that I'm very happy and secure in myself. I don't, just because Em can go in and really enjoy something with someone doesn't mean that she wouldn't enjoy it with me as well. Or even if she enjoyed one thing with one person and not with me, I don't see it as a self-reflection. I give to Em's life in a lot of positive ways, and so do other people. And I just see it as a great thing. I don't, and if anything, also I don't have to be everything for Em, because other people give to her as well and add to her life. And I don't see that as a negative thing, really. I think a lot of people, it's that kind of being brought up watching movies that, you know, you're the one and only and you're everything for person, and that massive love story. That people think that's what the expectation is, but I'm very secure and happy what I give to Em in her life.
That's a really lovely way of thinking about it. And you're right, we do now. It didn't used to be this way, actually, because relationships, marriage was maybe a lot more about opportunity, about status, about security and safety. You know, so when we go back and look at marriages, there was love there, but people didn't see their partner as their be all and everything. You know, it was that they fulfill this particular part of my life, but I have other people in my life that I work with. But I do feel that there is a huge expectation, and I see this with couples that come into the clinic room, where it's this feeling of, why can't I be your everything, or why aren't you my everything? And, you know, huge expectations on each other.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like want, it's very contradicting things all from the same person. You know, they want stability and security, but they also want excitement and you know, never-ending passion. And I just don't expect to get all of that from one person all the time. You know, there's going to be periods of time, I think, for sure, but I don't expect that to carry on, and I don't think there's any problem with it not. And from my end, like, jealousy is, I worry that it sounds like we're just trying to portray this perfect thing, but it's not something we've had to navigate. And I was actually quite worried about it before we both knew how we felt about stuff and how we wanted to feel about stuff. But before we put it like fully into practice, I was quite wary and almost braced for like having to deal with a lot of jealousy and things. But then it didn't come. And I don't know if that's just because, like, I knew before that I didn't want to feel jealous, and that you know, the same as Rosie. I mean, I just feel like, you know, Rosie's got this one life, and who am I to say how she interacts with or behaves with anyone else, you know? And I don't think any of that is a reflection on me. It's a different thing. How, like, no matter what she feels or does with anyone else, that's about them. None of it takes away from or has any reflection on what she feels about me.
This is such a lovely way of looking at it and quite refreshing, actually. And I think very different to how perhaps people perceive, because there is a love and a caring between you. You love and care for each other, obviously. And I've seen that, you know, on the previous conversation we've had and what you've actually kind of done to get to a point where you are in your committed relationship with each other. But to be able to, you know, I want to say the word allow, but that doesn't feel like the right word. But to be able to be that free with each other's choices, you know, I think is quite different to how many people would perceive it. So another question I know always comes up in terms of who and when is, so you are in a same-sex relationship. Do you only date other girls or female identity, or do you date guys? What's the mix?
Any, we don't mind who it is, you
Don't
know, at
mind.
all.
Okay.
We just always joke that I'm rubbish at flirting with women. So
Oh,
But yeah,
okay.
so like, practically at the moment, neither of us are dating women. But like that's just women are just so much harder.
yeah.
That's just because you know there's just less options as well, like
Yeah.
for women who are and just yeah, it's just how it's happened to be at the moment. But yeah, we're both. Well, do you consider yourself pansexual?
Yeah. For me, it's
Okay.
I'm attracted to, not what's going on down there or anything else. It's if I'm attracted to someone, I'm attracted to someone. So
Okay.
yeah, but and like we don't have any restrictions on who, you know, age, sex, gender, anything like that.
Yeah, okay. And that's interesting again, because I have met some couples who say, you know, it's okay, but only if you date another girl, or it's okay if we only have another guy in the relationship, or but again, it's just so open for you two. It's just so fluid, isn't it? You know, in terms of, you know, how you behave.
Well, I think for us, it's really like why we've come to this, or why I mean, I feel like it's just always been a part of who I am. But for me, the driving force, the real thing behind it, is how I want to treat other people and how you know, and that's just for me personally. You know, it's just what I feel is right for me. But so therefore, whether it's a man or a woman makes no difference to me.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's
For
a
you,
huge one
yeah.
that comes up, though. It is a huge one that comes up. A lot of people aren't comfortable with, they're comfortable with their partners being with the same sex, but not the opposite sex. It's very
Yeah.
comfortable, like it's very common to be like that. And it's a huge one that Em and I discuss a lot, and something that I guess we're trying to put fully into words about why we think it shouldn't be that way. But it's very normalized, especially in terms of men feeling very comfortable with their female partners being with females, but not with men. And
I
it's
agree. I
yeah, it's a
yeah,
very
I
thing for us, for sure. Because for me, people are people, and having sex with other people is having sex with other people, regardless. And I think the biggest thing for us, why it doesn't sit right with me, is that it kind of almost devalues sex and intimate relationships between women, because they don't see it as a threat. They don't see it as a threat compared to a man and woman having sex. So that's something that, yeah, we want to explore more and try and like see why people do feel that way and how we can kind of reword it for them to look at it differently.
there is a whole piece around this, and we could go down a real rabbit hole, but it is quite common where in a couple it's deemed, you know, so the man has had an affair, okay, with another woman, and that's awful for, you know, for everyone when that comes out, but it's almost normalized. Okay, yeah, he's had an affair. When the woman has an affair, there's a bit more of a shock factor. She, you know, she had an affair with another man, you know, and it really impacts the dynamics in a different way when the couples are looking to move on from that. Yeah, and there is this whole sort of joke sometimes in the clinic session that, yeah, I'd be fine if she brought a girl home, you know, because it's almost like that other woman is for me as well. You know, it's like it's not for her. That also ticks my box. So that's okay. But another guy, well, that feels quite threatening. That could actually be a threat to the relationship and my status. Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
it's very interesting.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
I know.
sorry.
No, go for it, Emma.
I was going to say I find it slightly different to Rosie in terms of what it means when men have that feeling, because I don't think it's like a conscious devaluing of same-sex relationships. I think it's just from a place that they can directly compare themselves to this other person, whereas they don't do that with a woman.
Right.
So I think it's more of a like insecurity about themselves rather than devaluing something else for the most part.
Yes, yes. So this other person could very well be a threat. He may be fitter. What if he's better at sex? What if he lasts longer? What if there's a whole, that comparison must be huge because again, we still bring our boys up differently. We still do bring them up, to have a different mindset. And there is that competitive edge and that ego and that status that for a lot of men is underpinned, and that to be vulnerable, to let someone else in, especially another man, into your relationship is to step into that vulnerability space, which can be very uncomfortable for people.
Yeah.
So
And I think people shy too much away from uncomfortableness.
Say that again.
I think people shy away from uncomfortableness. I think in a lot of dynamics in society, if it's a bad feeling coming in, we shouldn't do it and we shouldn't talk about it. And I think actually it's like, if anything, it's more reason to talk about it and try and delve deeper rather than run away from it sort of thing. It's something that should just, get comfortable with being uncomfortable and then it leads to better things.
Yes, I agree. So looking back at how you became the two of you, and as we've said, only share what you want to share, but life before the two of you, how did you end up, in this relationship? If you just want to share some details of that to give some context to the relationship.
So in terms of like how we ended up here, I'll say that I always knew that, like, I remember being a kid and like not understanding people coupling up. So I've always kind of had this mindset, or I knew I felt differently about relationships to other people. And I didn't actually date until like my late 20s or like anything at all. But at that point, as soon as I was doing that, I was trying to articulate this different way that I felt about it. And I had never heard of non-monogamy or polyamory. I didn't know there were these like words and that other people felt similar ways and stuff. So it's always been something for me. And then how we came together was I met Rosie and her husband. And that developed into something that I don't think any of us were expecting, probably me least of all. And I ended up moving in with them, and it became a full, committed relationship.
So this was a throuple, to use the new lingo. This was a throuple going on here. Okay.
Yeah, it started off just like casually meeting and then we just became friends and then it just, evolved into like an actual relationship and then Em moved in. So we were in like a committed sort of throuple relationship for like a year and a bit, year and a half.
Yeah. And obviously your ex-husband, isn't in the interview, and we don't want to sort of dive into other people's private lives, but in terms of the instigation of that, how was that navigated with this other, because you've then got someone else that needs to be in agreement, and obviously guessing at the time he was, because it did become the three of you in a committed relationship. How do you broach that topic with somebody else of, I want to be more open in our relationship?
Yeah, I mean, at first it wasn't a problem because I think the first reason why we started doing it was because I wanted to explore being with other women, and he was very comfortable with that. So it was going down that route. So it was all going great. We obviously never ever like planned to have like a proper relationship. It was always just going to be, consensual fun and then, carry on life. But obviously meeting it was a bit different and things did kind of evolve into more. and that through communication and just things slowly and gradually, like seeing her more and more and her being at ours more and more, it just, before we knew it, we were just together all the time sort of thing.
Yeah. So from your perspective, if there are couples out there who are thinking about this and thinking about exploring it, how do they kick off this communication? If you've got any sort of tips for them or hints about good communication.
Just got to keep talking about it and keep checking in, and just, have your absolute, like, these are no sort of thing,
Right.
and I think you learn through it, and you learn what, like, your boundaries are through it, and you just have to keep on talking about, make sure you're on the same page sort of thing. I did find it hard, because I knew there was a lot of things that he wouldn't be comfortable with. So it was difficult for sure. But, like, above all, I wanted to be completely open and honest about everything, and so that everyone knew where they stood and everything like that. And also getting into a relationship with Em, I know she'll say different in terms of equality, but I always wanted to make her feel like she was just as important as my husband, regardless of how long we'd been together and the fact that we were married.
Yeah.
I didn't ever want her feeling like a third leg, or that she took less priority or anything. That was really important to me. I didn't want to be in this for selfish reasons, or it seeming really cool that we've got a girlfriend. I wanted it to be best for Em as well as us.
So let's just touch on that, Emma. Yeah, talk about, how did you feel when you moved in?
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. So the reason Rosie said she disagrees because that I disagree is because I went into it, and how I felt going into it was, I knew that, like, they'd been together a long time, and they'd had so much of life together. They'd been married for years. I didn't expect to be like equal in every way. They both did like the most amazing job of like day-to-day stuff, probably even putting me above, and really making me feel like completely important and everything like that. But for me, I felt like I knew and expected, and there was nothing wrong with this, that deep down, like end of the day stuff rather than day-to-day stuff, they were going to be each other's priority, because like, even if we'd have still been all together in 10 years, there was just so much that they had experienced together and for the first time together. So I never felt like I was going to be equal, but that's fine. Like I'd never felt like I had to be, because we were going to have our own, like me with each of them individually and us all together. And it's like, your relationship with everyone is different. Your relationship is different with your grandma to your friend, and it's not that one's better than another one. It's just that they've got different benefits and everything attached to them.
So you felt as though you had two individual relationships as well, one with Rosie and one with the husband, and that was important that they were seen as individual relationships.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the most healthiest way, is to see it as, individual relationships, and the relationship as together as a throuple. To kind of be able to like focus on those individual relationships, I think is really important. Because I think, at the end of the day, at the time, if one of us are broken up with one of them, then there shouldn't be an expectation that then the other one has to, sort of thing. That I would still carry on a relationship with Em if my ex-husband broke up with Em, sort of thing. It wasn't seen as all or nothing. We are our individual relationships as well.
And what we're definitely seeing, as we see, more and more couples who are having more diverse and non-monogamous relationships, is actually, it does make communication at the forefront. The one thing that they are having more than your sort of traditional, even heterosexual, relationships, is when there's stuff that needs to be talked about, that there's stuff that, unless you are having those conversations, you're just not even going to get off the ground. Whereas I think in a traditional relationship, it's almost like, yeah, we'll just put that under the carpet and hope that goes away, because one, there's no one else that I have to navigate with, you know, there's no, and also I don't really want to rock the boat, and you know, why would we talk about that? And then they wait until the relationship is in crisis, you know, or worse, complacency, you know, before looking for help. So I do see that, because it gives you these extra, I'll call them challenges, but you know, there are these other topics, and that's a fabulous one to think about, isn't it? Like, what happens when? And in your case, there was a rupture in the relationship, so you went from being the three of you, and you and Emma deciding, you know, to be, well, you are the two of you. So how were you sort of feeling about navigating that, and how does that all work now?
So I think you were kind of like asking about advice for people earlier.
Yes.
I think one thing is to be very proactive with reassurance, and you know, making sure that you communicate very clearly what the other person does mean to you, and that they hear that. And also how you approach, like I said, we haven't had any problems with jealousy, but we have had conversations, haven't we? And I can't think exactly what about now, but I think the way to go about them is to say what your experience is without blaming the other person for it. So like, you know, just I'm feeling this way about this. It doesn't mean, I'm not saying you can't do it or anything else. I want to have a conversation about it, and it really does help and make you feel better when you can just voice whatever is going on for you, and feel your partner's support in helping you through that feeling, rather than
defensive or, you know, stuff like that. I think sometimes by saying something, you think that they're insinuating that you're making them feel that way, or that you shouldn't be doing what. But like, you know, I want through and through to Em to tell me exactly how she feels about things. And like I said, like she says, it's not about saying you cannot do that. It's just sometimes she just needs to know a little bit more information, or she just needs a bit of reassurance, and then we move forward. But because I know that the intention is good, and it's not to try and control me or manipulate what I do and don't do with who, I don't feel defensive when she says these things to me. I feel like, you know, I'm glad that she feels comfortable to tell me.
Yes.
And yeah, like those situations, we've just chatted about it, and then it's not been a problem, has it?
No.
Sort of thing at all. And yeah, and it just, I think in the past where I've felt very nervous to communicate previously, not with them, that you then end up getting into situation, oh, do I want to communicate this? And is this going to go down really horribly? And I think we want to feel completely comfortable in saying exactly what we're thinking and how we're feeling. And obviously we're very constructive and very kind about how we say things. We don't just blab it out and say it. You know? We're very much like, you know, I know you haven't made me feel this way, but I'm just feeling a little bit like this at the moment. And I'll be like, it's fine, do you have any questions or anything I can help you to reassure you? It's a very, very relaxed kind of thinking about each other's feelings way, and not getting defensive about how we feel about it at all.
And when you say about like challenges, like it is challenges, but I think like that's a good word to use, because like it's a positive word. Someone once describe like navigating E&M or poly as sort of like wanting to go traveling, and like knowing that stuff's going to go wrong. You know, you're going to miss buses, you're going to you know, lose your passport. Stuff's going to go wrong. That's kind of part of the story, you know, and you're going to learn it, and you're going to get so much stuff that you do get to experience that you otherwise wouldn't, because of that. And it's kind of seeing it in that way, that like, yeah, okay, maybe it's not all going to feel amazing all the time. Maybe I am going to feel jealous, or that we are going to have different conversations. But it means that I get to treat Rosie in the way that I want to treat her, that she gets to live her life the way that she wants to. And, you know, we get to meet all these cool people that we wouldn't otherwise have met, and experience things with them. And yeah, just seeing that, and actually, like, even the bad bits, like the feeling of the jealousy stuff, it means I get to work on myself, and it means I get to develop and grow as a person as well.
So I want to thank you both for taking the last sort of half an hour over to talk to us about your relationship and for sharing, because whilst it is becoming more and more known, I think for many people, they've still got lots of questions. I think there are lots of couples out there that are hearing about it and wondering, oh, I've got questions. Is this for me? You know, how can I approach this? When I put the message out, the reason I came across these lovely people is because I put a message out on a Facebook group, I think. Someone had asked a particular question about open relationships, and I dived on and said, if it's okay, if anybody wants to share, then I'm doing this podcast and I want to speak. And actually had quite a few people come in and say, yes, I've thought about this, or I'm exploring this, or so it's definitely a space where there is conversation to be had. So I just want to thank Emma and Rosie so much for letting us dive into their private world and sharing their thoughts and their tips on that. So want to thank everybody for listening to the relationship arena. Relationships are absolutely my passion. It's what I love working with people on, and all the different diverse ones. So you can find out more just by subscribing to the podcast, or you can watch, if you're visual, because I'm a bit visual, I'm a visual person, you can watch the visual version of this on YouTube, the relationship arena. So you'll see all the links available. And if you have a story that you'd like to share about your relationship, then why not get in touch? As always, look after each other, keep the communication open, you know, think about nurturing your relationship. Someone once said to me that your relationship should be the most important job you have. Of all the jobs you list off you need to do, the relationship is the one that should be at the top. And I absolutely believe that. So wishing you all well. Thank you once again to Emma and Rosie, and I'll see you again soon in the relationship arena.